Hi, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log for Friday, July 10. Hey, I want to mention a friend of mine who we lost recently. Mimi Soltysik. Now, whenever I talk about, and I often do reference my radical friends, my online comrades, commies and socialists and radicals, the people I really admire and relate to. 9 times out of 10, I'm talking about Mimi. What a great guy. What an inspiration. Socialist political activist. I'm just reading from his Wikipedia page right now. Socialist Party USA. He was the party's nominee for president of the United States in the 2016 election, alongside Angela Walker, who's another interesting person and remains one of my friends, my radical friends. She's currently the vice presidential candidate for the Green Party, and born and raised here in Milwaukee, and has a lot of history here. I think she's in North Carolina now, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, yeah, Mimi was a great guy. He was elected as the male co-chair of the Socialist Party USA for the 2013 through 15 term. And then in 2014 was one of 8 candidates in the primary for California's 62nd State Assembly District. Then, of course, the big moment, 2016 presidential campaign, nominated by the Socialist Party USA at their national convention, right here in Milwaukee, by the way, nominated for president. So a committed activist, a committed socialist, and for me, you know how you meet friends online, friend of a friend kind of a thing. Well, I first discovered Angela Walker because of her activism here in Milwaukee, and then through her, then I met Mimi online, and his social media posts were so welcome. It really taught me so much, and I felt such great camaraderie with him, and he had a great sense of humor, very personable guy, and unapologetic about his radical politics, and just smart as a whip. A wonderful, wonderful resource. He was always pointing his friends toward, books and articles and other experts and people to read and things to know. He was also a bit of an a-hole at times, in that he was kind of caustic, and he was very much self-deprecating about all of that. He knew he could be an SOB at times. So that was just part of who he was. In his early life, he grew up as a troublemaker, musician, sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of youth. And then reached his early 30s and kind of got it together and went back to school and wound up with a master's of public administration. So well-educated, well-read, and totally committed to the cause. And boy, I really miss him. He died on June 28th, just a few days ago. He had a long struggle with liver cancer, and so we lost him recently. So I just want to give a shout out to Mimi and encourage you to find people who will inspire you, find people who you can admire. So shout out to Mimi Soltysik. And I hope you'll find people like that in your life. A quick little shout out to my San Francisco friends. I lived there for many years. I still have friends and very close family out there. And I loved it while I was there. Well, I happened to see this headline earlier this week. San Francisco is now the most gentrified city in the U.S. Most recent data, as of 2017, shows San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, and Sacramento all in top 10 most gentrified cities. Yeah, I lived there from, I was in the Bay Area generally from 1980 through mid-90s. So about 15 years. and some of that time living right in the city. And in the years since that I've been back for visits, boy, you can really see the changes. According to the most up-to-date study from 2020 by the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, San Francisco was the most intensely gentrified city in America from 2013 to 2017, followed by Denver, Boston, Miami, and New Orleans. They had the largest share of their vulnerable neighborhoods that gentrified during that time period. Yeah, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. When I moved there in 1980, you could find a little apartment, pay for it. I lived right down by Ocean Beach, a couple of blocks from the Pacific, and you could bop around town on pretty good public transportation, and it was all about the neighborhoods and the friends I had there. You know, I'd have one in this neighborhood, another one in that neighborhood, and we could just bop around and see each other. It was diverse. And, the scourge of gentrification, which some of us were a little slow to understand. I know when I was young, I just thought, oh, look, a new boutique or a new coffee shop, place to hang out. I thought it was just improving the neighborhood. That's what a lot of us thought. We didn't realize. Some of us were very naive about what was happening. We thought, oh, the neighborhood's just improving. Great, wonderful. That's progress. The things change. Okay, fine. But then we learned over time the real cost of gentrification, and that people are priced out of neighborhoods and then priced out of whole cities. Diversity suffers. Culture suffers. Yeah, and with the whole tech boom of the 80s and the 90s, all of a sudden the entire Bay Area, San Jose, San Francisco, Oakland. Man, it's a whole new place now. And it pushes out into the burbs. You may have seen the story this week about the MAGA couple trying to black out with black paint the Black Lives Matter street painting. Did you see that story? Yeah, I guess they were charged with a couple of different counts of, disorderly conduct or vandalism or something. But this video went viral of them rolling black paint over the Black Lives Matter mural on the street in Martinez, California. And I actually lived in Martinez for a while, and I've got family and friends out there as well. And so I was kind of familiar with Martinez. And, very, very, very white, which is kind of odd. In the Bay Area, that has to be intentional. A place isn't all white by accident in the Bay Area. There are just too many people of all different colors and stripes. Diversity is just a given out there. So for one particular place to be very, very white is a sign of a problem. So, yeah, I've got some familiarity with what goes on out there. So I haven't got any answers. I don't know what to tell you, except my go-to solution for everything, and that is we just have to legislate money out of our lives. We have to take it out of the center of everything that happens. Other than that, I don't know what else to tell you. Gentrification, this is happening in every city. Here in River West, my neighborhood, the greatest neighborhood in the world, River West in Milwaukee, we're getting a sniff of it. We've been such great holdouts, We've been holding on. We've had a pretty tight grip on our neighborhood, keeping it the place it is. Good people, diverse population, just keeping it local, keeping it close, keeping it tight, keeping it cool. But we're having troubles. The first signs are there. It takes effort to fight back the tremendous force of gentrification. And we haven't fallen yet, but it's a daily fight. So all my love to friends and family listening out there in the Bay Area. I love you guys. My best buddy, Frank, has been in a rent-controlled building for many, many years. And he joked with me that every time he runs into his landlord, he makes a little joke about, hey, Frank, are you still alive? You going to die on me one of these days? So he can get that rent-controlled apartment back. Yeah, my buddy Frank, I love the guy. I've mentioned Frank before, right? Frank Skillman, he and I did Neo Radio together. Go to the website, charlesburcell.com. Listen to Neo Radio. Great old show we did for KPFA in Berkeley. All right. I love you guys. Hang in there, Bay Area. You know, we need to do the numbers. We haven't done them in a long time. Well, here are the latest numbers I have. Coronavirus. Total cases, 3,220,559. That's up approximately 61,000 from yesterday, which was up approximately 62,000 from the day before, and 56, 57. Yeah, these last week or so, really high daily counts and record highs, one after another. Total deaths, 135,828. And that's 945 in a 24-hour period. Before that, 892. Before that, 998. So we're up in the nearly 1,000 deaths per day range. I'm looking back here. We haven't seen that since, mid-June, early mid-June. We saw numbers like that when it was still really hitting New York hard. Now, of course, Arizona is the big hot spot. Texas remains a hot spot. Here in my Wisconsin, record number of cases in a 24-hour period, 754, according to my numbers here, just since yesterday. Only 2 deaths, and statistically speaking, that's good. But, of course, number of deaths lags behind, so we'll be watching those numbers, and hopefully they won't go up. The big numbers that everybody should be paying attention to is the percentage of positive tests that come back. That is really a key number. And one of the recommendations originally, way back when the CDC was trying to tell us, all right, if you're going to open, you have to meet certain criteria. Well, this is one of the most important ones. You have to have a downward trajectory of positive tests as a percentage of total tests. So you look at that 2-week period, and if you get a downward trend, that's good. That's what we want. Well, right now, we're in an up and down, and we have been for just forever. The last 12 days I'm looking at here, we've had 5 up, 7 down. So the graph has moved up on 5 of the days, moved down on 7 of the days. And we're sitting currently at about 6% positive tests coming back. And that's not a good number. We were down to 3 and 2, and 3 and 2 we were toggling for a while, early mid-June here in Wisconsin, for us anyway. And then it bumped and it rose, and then we hit triple digits for a couple days last week. 11%, 10% of tests coming back positive, 9%. So now we're back down to 6. But still, this is not meeting the criteria at all. Any kind of reopening is happening in spite of the original criteria laid out. Like, okay, well, we're going to have to just move the goalpost because according to the original goalposts, we'll never open. So that's where we are. It's kind of depressing to talk about the numbers. I don't necessarily like to do it, but I feel duty-bound to check in once in a while. And we mentioned this a couple days ago, actually more than that, a week or 2 ago. We started hearing these little comments from officials about how we just kind of have to live with it. Like, we're not really fighting it anymore. We just got to open up. Like I said, move the goalposts, open up even though we don't meet the standards that were originally set. And, the new approach to the virus is we just have to live with it. Yeah, we first mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and I've seen little stories here and there to that effect. And here from MSNBC, Steve Bannon writes on July 7th, so just a couple days ago, Americans are confronting all kinds of new information about the coronavirus pandemic, and none of it's good. NBC News reported yesterday, for example, that over the first 5 days in July, the United States added 250,000 new cases. The same report added that 10 states have already notched record single-day highs in the number of cases since the start of the month. So, yeah, we know all this. 7-day averages hitting highs. Anyway, so Bannon writes, against this backdrop, it's likely that many Americans will grow disgusted, throw up their arms in despair, and start to see these tragic conditions as a painful new normal. And as it happens, that may be what Donald Trump and his team are counting on. So what you and I were talking about a few weeks ago is now being confirmed by reports. Quote, after several months of mixed messages on the coronavirus pandemic, the White House is settling on a new one. Learn to live with it. Administration officials are planning to intensify what they hope is a sharper and less conflicting message of the pandemic next week. At the crux of the message, officials said, is a recognition by the White House that the virus is not going away anytime soon and will be around through the November election. The virus is with us, but we need to live with it, is how one official told NBC News the administration plans to message on the pandemic. Yep, I don't know. Let me skip down here to the end because I think this is pretty well put. One of the principal problems with the we need to live with it argument is that, in a rather literal sense, many Americans cannot live with it. The death toll has climbed above 130,000, and intensive care units in many communities have been pushed to their breaking point. What's more, there's the nagging detail, which the public is likely to notice, that around the world there are plenty of advanced countries that are in vastly better positions than the United States, thanks largely to effective government responses. NBC News' Benji Sarlin summarized this nicely late last week, explaining, one big problem with this message is that it's getting hard to ignore all the countries that get to live without it. Yeah, isn't that the truth? There's very little hope at all that we can get any sort of leadership on this. And I was thinking, too, as much as we pillory the Orange Menace, and it's well-deserved, he actually might have been the best person to have in the White House when this thing broke out. Now, I know that sounds crazy. Let me explain. There was an opportunity there to be Nixon in China. That is, as the political theorists and historians have put it, only someone like Nixon, rabid anti-communist, could pull off normalizing relations with China. Because if a Democrat tried it, if someone softer on communism tried it, then that whole other side of the American populace would have rejected it. Oh, he's just soft on communism. He's just a commie lover. So it would have been impossible for a Democrat, for a liberal. Can you imagine George McGovern, if he had won election and tried to normalize relations with China? The entire right side of the political spectrum would have had a cow. So there is the Nixon and China philosophy. Well, that's why I say that the Orange Menace might have been the perfect person to have, and he really could have easily handled it. He could have just turned it over to the scientists, looked for best consensus around the world as information about the virus was developing, and countries around the world, some of them were doing a damn good job, which we were able to see in real time. And if he had done that, then he would have brought all the deplorables with him. And there never would have been this ridiculous backlash, this anti-science, anti-mask, bar lives matter ridiculousness. As opposed to, because I thought about, imagine if Hillary Clinton had been president when all this broke out. Now, lover or hater, that's irrelevant. Irregardless, as the new dictionary says. Did you hear that? They're now accepting irregardless as a substitute for regardless. I won't get into that. But imagine if Hillary Clinton were president when this thing broke out. She would have handled it like a boss. She would have just been in her element. She'd get her people together and she'd be saying this order and that order. Okay, we got it. She would have had it down. But she would have failed. Why? Because all of the deplorables have to do the opposite. Right? They have to do the opposite. Whatever Hillary Clinton wants, we can't give it to her. Whatever she says has to be a lie, has to be wrong. So Hillary Clinton would have made every right move right down the line. She would be the Jacinda of America. What's her last name? I only remember her first name, the Prime Minister, the President of New Zealand, who just gets A+, A+, A+ for her response. And there are other great examples around the world. Japan has done well, South Korea, Vietnam. So a lot of countries did really well. And Hillary Clinton would have just checked every box on all the right moves. And she would have failed because of the deplorables. So the Orange Menace really was the perfect guy to have in office. All he had to do was the right thing. All he had to do was listen to Fauci, listen to the experts, follow the lead of world leaders, many of which had experience with things like SARS. And he could have made the right moves and brought all the deplorables with him. And right now, in mid-July, we wouldn't be at the peak of this problem. We'd be a month into normalcy and recovery, like other countries are. Yeah, there was a great opportunity here. And I wish I could paint a rosier picture. I have no idea how to get out of it now. I honestly don't. Because even if and when we have a new president in November, because you know nothing's going to happen between now and then. We just know this as a fact. If we have a President Biden in November, well, now we have the Clinton situation. He might very well check every box, make every right move. Actually, I doubt that. It's too late now. But even if he did, let's assume for a minute that he does make every right move. The deplorables will just line up against him. And we'll have this large mass of population refusing to cooperate on things like masks and social distancing and the shuttering of certain businesses, and God forbid that we track anybody. So we'll have nearly half the country just balking at whatever he tries to accomplish. So I'm sorry. I'm usually Mr. Sunshine, looking for a positive way we can solve problems. I don't see it. I just don't see it right now. I don't know how we get out of this. I mean, the talking points from the Republicans now, along with we just have to live with it, which is their sort of central tenet. One of their major planks here in the virus platform is, of all things, liability. It's the first thing you hear out of their mouths when they're talking about the next phase of relief. Whatever this next phase of relief is going to be, there has to be something. Even the Republicans agree there has to be something, another $1,200 check or some extension of benefits. Oh my God, you and I haven't talked about all the PPP mess. The Catholic Church getting millions of dollars, all these political cronies, well-connected lobbyists, mega churches, getting millions of the PPP money designed to help small businesses. That's just crazy. We haven't talked about that. So anyway, yeah, the next phase has to be something. And the Republicans, liability is their big thing. This is central to their argument. We have to give businesses liability exemptions so customers can't sue them for getting the virus in their establishment. Yeah, give the bar owner liability exemption, immunity. So open up your bar, let everybody come in. No masks required. No social distancing required. Oh, it's suggested. But of course, we've all seen the pictures. It's not being followed. And no liability. Who does this help? And now the schools as well. Just yesterday, Kevin McCarthy from California, he's the Republican minority leader in the House, had a little presser. And he brought it up in regard to school reopening.
You can protect them from liability. So schools will actually have a willingness and a desire to open and not a fear that they're going to be sued.
That's why they're afraid to open? Because they're afraid of being sued? You think that's the reason that teachers and administrators don't want to open? You don't think it has anything to do with the fact that, they might get sick and die? Or that the children to whom they've dedicated their lives might get sick and die? No, a Republican doesn't think that way. Liability? Really? This is your solution. Liability. Wow.
If I could just follow up.
Yeah.
Between now and the end of July, if there's no sort of agreement reached in terms of how to extend these, are there conversations being had about just extending the $600 benefit beyond July?
I think the only discussions we're having right now is an overall package. If we're going to be gone in August, there are needs. There are liability protections for these schools to go forward. We should be focusing on the schools and the child care.
So, of all the issues, this he puts number one. In fact, it's the only thing he mentions. Liability relief. Immunity. Lord mercy. Oh, speaking of the schools here, just a little update from yesterday. Remember we talked about how Pence was saying, the CDC will change their school reopening guidelines because of the Orange Menace tweet about how angry he was. He used 3 exclamation points. I'll be talking to them. Well, my comment yesterday was just very sad that, I guess we lost the CDC now. We need institutions and bureaucrats and professionals with some independence from politics. And it looked as though, at the time I spoke with you yesterday, that the CDC was going to bow to the White House pressure. Well, what developed since you and I spoke yesterday, first of all, the White House denied pressuring the CDC when, I don't know, there's a tweet there for all of us to see with 3 exclamation points. I guess that's not pressure. So they do their thing. They lie routinely several times a day. But the good news is that the CDC director came out, and this is, what a tortured individual this guy is. He's got the weird no mustache beard. I bet I know why. I bet his hero was the Surgeon General C. Everett Koop. Remember General C. Everett Koop? He was probably the best known Surgeon General, and he had that funny white beard with no mustache, kind of the Abraham Lincoln look. So the current head of the CDC is Dr. Robert Redfield, and I'm sure you've seen him in the pressers. What a tortured guy. Just really labors over every statement he makes. He's so careful not to offend the Orange Menace and tries to squeeze that square peg in the round hole every damn time he's at the podium. Well, he came out and, by his standard, said very clearly, no, we're not rewriting the guidelines. He said there may be more information coming forward, and but we are definitely not changing the guidelines due to anyone's pressure. So that was good news. That was a little bit of good news. It happened right after we spoke yesterday. So I just wanted to update you on that. Well, I guess it's not jump up and down great news, but it's the best I can come up with today. So tell you what, let's close on that little bit, that little sliver of good news, shall we? All right, have a great weekend. Talk to you Monday. This episode of The Log is available right now wherever you find your podcasts, including Apple, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Or go to charlesburcell.com for the full archive and all the other series in the podcast family. Follow, comment, and contact me on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks to our flagship station, River West Radio, riverwestradio.com. Theme music composed and performed by Peter Donalds. From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Burcell.